I think that they do that type of behavior.
They weren't expecting it, and they were just kind of startled. And I think that's how we all were.
There's a hole there with the stick still in it, and the end of the stick's all dirty from digging the hole.
They have taught me. This is what my experiences have been. I don't get my information because I read it in a book or I saw it online. This is my life.
I think there's various reasons for that. I believe that, those are the raw materials they have.
Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to the Nonabos Continuum. I'm so excited tonight because I have a really fun guest. You guys are going to really enjoy Angelique tonight. But before we get started, I want to, say hi to everybody in the chat really quick. And I always like to do that. You guys mean a lot to me. You guys are here, my family, my soul tribe, and I appreciate every single one of you. Hi, Gary. Hi, Bobby. Hi, Miss Sharon Guy. Brown Dwarf, how are you? Brown Dwarf is going to be on the show soon in a few weeks. He's coming on. That'll be fun. Chiro Sounds. I still got to get you guys booked. Let's see, who else? Miss Primal Cry is here. How are you? Miss Dina, how are you doing? And Miss Jean Hudson, of course. And Simi, how are you? And I started a couple minutes early. Well, maybe 30 seconds early, but that's okay. I can do that, right? Because it's my show. So again, I want to thank you guys so much for all your support. Tonight's guest is going to be a treat for you guys. If you have not seen her interviews with like Jessica on Spaced Out Radio, she's been on so many shows. Hey, Papa C, how are you? You are in for a treat tonight, guys. So let's welcome Miss Angelique Benham to the Nonabos Continuum. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for coming. And I just love to hear your stories, and they're just so moving and beautiful. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a beautiful journey.
Yeah, and I love to talk to people who have the same kind of, thoughts and feelings about Sasquatch being a people, and that they are a people. And that's my belief. And I just love to hear beautiful stories. I mean, you have to share with us the beautiful story of the old man on the mountain. You have to share that story with us.
Are you talking about when I was kayaking?
Were you kayaking? I thought you were, yes, you were kayaking and you saw him come down the mountain, right?
Yes. And then he came and sat down on the edge of the bank and So that was my very first experience, and I've had many more since then. But that was the one that solidified that they are real. And it happened over 20 years ago. I was kayaking with my family on a northeastern Washington lake near the Canadian border called Sullivan Lake. And I was with a big group of kids and my sister-in-law and her kids. And we had spent the entire day kayaking and wound up at a beach full of people. And it was a very long lake. Sullivan Lake is a very long lake. And on one side of the lake, there's a highway. And on the other side of the lake is pure wilderness. And that's where they used to feed the Rocky Mountain sheep in a wilderness feeding program for the Rocky Mountain sheep.
Mhm.
And so nobody lives on that side, and it's all just a big mountainous terrain. Well, we decided we were going to kayak on that side of the lake, go all the way to the end to where there was a campground full of people, just splash around, relax, eat lunch, and then kayak all the way back, following that side of the lake again. Well, we were only there for just a couple minutes, and my sister-in-law and I both started feeling very started feeling really uneasy and getting kind of creeped out. Now, granted, this beach is full of people. I mean, families and children splashing in the water and a lot of commotion going on. And right directly across from this inlet, basically, was a rope swing that you could see about, I would say, maybe a little less than 100 yards. And I had gone ahead and given my life vest to one of the boys because we had an extra child with us that day, and I'd given my life vest to one of them. So I didn't have a life vest with me, and I'm not a very good swimmer. So I wanted to stay very, very close to the shore. So in case something happened where I rolled my boat, I would be able to get to the shore quickly and not wear out, because I'm really not a very good swimmer. Well, while we were sitting there, and my kids and my sister-in-law and her kids were all playing in the water and everything, we were eating lunch, and then we decided that we had to get going back, or we were going to not make it back to the other side of the lake before dark. So she piled all the kids in. The kids all got in their own kayaks, and these are all boys, all of them. It's 6 boys between us. So
That's
talking
great.
about herding cats. That's about what it's like. So, but she went ahead and went with them and left a little bit earlier than me, and I stayed back and waited for a few minutes. And I'm gonna get real with you and your listeners, but at that time I was sneaking cigarettes. My kids didn't know that I smoked, and I was jonesing for a cigarette so bad. So I sent them ahead, and I stayed back and just said, hey, I'll meet up with you in a minute. I'm going to finish my sandwich. Well, what I did was I was finishing my cigarette. So that was a terrible. I don't smoke anymore, by the way. So, but but I did back then. And so the kids are all they had left with my sister-in-law, and so they, the older boys were in their middle to late teens, and it was a good group, but they were quite a ways down, and I went ahead and I started getting that feeling, that pressure of just very, very uneasy. And I noticed that the entire beach had just completely emptied. There wasn't a single person. And I remember looking down the beach and not seeing anyone, and started getting creeped out a little bit. Well, I did see a movement across the way over at the rope swing. And as I was sitting there, I noticed this old man walking down a pathway and then sitting down on a stump. And 2 little boys were ahead of them, and they were down at the water's edge, and they were doing like what little boys do. They were throwing rocks in the lake, and this old man, he sat down and he crossed his leg, and I remember thinking, okay, good, I'm not totally by myself. So as I was headed back towards the kids, my kids, I decided to just kind of aim towards them so that I could kind of stay close to the shore, and they'd be in view of me. And I was just cruising really slow. At that point in time, I was just taking it very, very slow. And as I got up a little bit closer, I was watching the two little boys, and the two little boys, one of them was wearing, definitely remember him wearing like red basketball shorts. And they were just standing there, and I remember them pointing, and the old man was sitting behind them with his hand clasped in front of his knee. And he just looked like he was watching them, like he was just making sure that they didn't get hurt. He was just babysitting the kids, making sure that they were going to be safe. And as I was headed towards them, I was getting closer and closer. And then the two little boys took off down the trail, and Grandpa stayed. And I remember as I was coming up on him, I waved at him because I noticed that he still had his leg crossed and was still sitting there and looked over at me. And I realized then that he was staring at me. Well, I'm the only person, and he's the only person. And so I waved at him, and he didn't wave back. He still just sat there. And I remember thinking, okay, well, he just didn't see me. He just didn't see me. So as I got a little bit closer, and I'm still just barely cruising. As I got a little bit closer, then I waved again, and he still didn't wave. And I remember going, okay, now I know he saw me. I know he saw me that time. He's just, probably just an elder that didn't want to be bothered,
Yeah.
So I just kind of blew it off. But I was still kind of aiming towards him, and I'm not kidding. I was barely off of shore, just far enough that like the branches of the trees and stuff that hang over the bank, I was just skirting the outside of those. So I was very close to the shore. I would say probably about 8 feet from shore is where I was kayaking.
So close.
And as I came up on him, I realized that this grandpa, I remember thinking he must be a grandpa because he had silver hair, and it was a very hot day. It was mid-August and probably 90 degrees out, and he was wearing full-on clothes, what looked like a turtleneck and long sleeve and long pants. And I remember thinking, well, he's got to be just that he's an elder, and maybe he's cold, When I came up on him, I turned to look at him, and I remember I was either going to say hello to him, or I did say hello to him. Either way, I was passing close enough to him that I would naturally do that because you're passing that close.
Yeah.
I turned, yeah, definitely. Well, I turned and I looked at him, and that's when I got a really good look at him. And my first thought was, oh, that's not a grandpa. He actually, as I got closer to him, the silver in his hair turned more salt and pepper. It wasn't necessarily silver. It looked more silver from a distance, but when you got up on him, it was more salt and pepper. And I looked at him, and I remember my first thought was, whoa, he was really good looking, and probably maybe in his early 40s. He wasn't very old at all. And I remember thinking, okay, wow, this guy is really good looking. But I looked away, and then I looked at him again as I was passing him. And as I was passing him, I could literally see his eye color. And he had the most beautiful kind of brownish gold eyes with really dark lashes. And I just thought he was just beautiful. He was just a gorgeous guy. And then I looked away and glanced again. And as I glanced again, I realized he wasn't wearing a turtleneck. He was completely covered in hair. And he either shifted his hands were still down, and I remember I got a glimpse of his chest and his nipples and went, this guy's naked. Uh-oh. Whoops.
You're like,
Like, yeah, I kind of, then I was embarrassed, because then it was like, you know, what do you do in this situation when you're trying to act like no big deal? I see big hairy nudists all the time. You know, just I'm gonna blow it off like not a big deal. And I didn't want to gawk at the guy, you know, and so I just kind of went, okay, whoops. Well, I put another oar in the water and I passed him, and then I glanced over my shoulder because I was still kind of going, this doesn't happen every day.
yeah.
And when I glanced over, he had stood up. And when he stood up, he had turned to the side. Now, granted, I didn't see any genitalia or anything, but you could tell this was a man. There was nothing feminine whatsoever. Yeah. Well, he'd reached up with his arm to pull a branch out of his face. And I mean, his biceps were enormous, and that his muscles along his thigh, he was moving his leg or something, and I remember that muscle along the side of his outer of his thigh, like joggers get. I can't remember what that's called. I flunked anatomy, but it's that muscle that joggers get, and it rippled, and I realized I was just going, this has got to be the most muscly person I've ever seen in my life, and the tallest, because my dad was 6'6", and this man had probably 2 feet on my dad. He was just enormous, but absolutely perfectly muscled, not in a strange way, but just proportionate, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I glanced back one more time. He was gone, and I kind of went, okay, he went up the trail, and I'm just gonna head for the kids. And I'm thinking at this time that this man has hypertrichosis, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, I mean, I've never seen anybody with hypertrichosis before, but it was to the point where it was kind of like the old photos of the old Barnum and Bailey, you know, the wolf boy and everything. But this, it was more of a curiosity about what I thought was a skin disease than it was anything else. I never, ever thought Sasquatch at that time, not even close.
Didn't even register.
Nope, didn't even enter my mind, because in my mind, if anybody ever saw one, it was going to look like Patty, like the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yeah.
It wouldn't look like anything different than her.
Right.
Well, as I met up with my sister-in-law, I met my sister-in-law further on down the lake, and she had turned her kayak sideways. So I was coming up on her, and she was facing the mountain, and she was going, look, there's a hunter up there. And I kind of looked up on the mountain, and sure enough, on a bald knob on the top of that mountain, there he was. And he was literally walking parallel to me at the summit of the mountain. And as I would kayak, he would stay beside me, and he'd walk and he'd look down, and he'd walk and he'd look down as I was kayaking, until he eventually broke over the top and then down on the other side, where he disappeared in the trees. Now, I still, at that time, like I said, never, ever thought Sasquatch. Never. And when I got home, you know, it kind of ate at me, but it wasn't that I was still thinking anything like that. I was thinking more, does hypertrichosis have to do with maybe gigantism or something? And it
Mhm.
was more of a curiosity like that. Well, I found this website, and it was back in the, we're talking like the early 2000s. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was in college at the time, and I had one of those big, enormous box computers, and I got on it, and I found a forum, and it was just a chat room, is all it was. So because research was just a minimum back then,
Mhm.
you couldn't hardly research anything. Well, I found this chat room, and it was about anomalies, and if you saw something, you were supposed to tell this chat room what you saw, and maybe as a group effort, they'd be able to help you figure out what it was that you saw. So I posted what I saw, and nobody really had any answers. And so I just kind of gave up and I shut the computer down. Well, it was not very long after that. I mean, not very long at all. I got a phone call. Now, back then, I had gotten one of those little caller ID boxes that hooked to your landline
I
before we had
remember
cell
that.
phones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the caller ID box said US government. Well, I have a brother who worked in the US government. And so when I saw US government, I thought something had happened to my brother.
Right.
So I picked up, but it was this man who he told me what his name was. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. He told me what department he worked for, which I cannot remember what it was, and said he wanted to talk to me about the Sasquatch that I saw at Sullivan Lake. And
Wow.
I was like, what? I didn't see a Sasquatch. I saw a big hairy guy, with a skin disease.
Right.
And his reaction was basically he kind of blew me off, like he thought I was just being maybe coy or something. And he just said, I want to talk to you about the Sasquatch that you saw at Sullivan Lake.
That
Well,
must
when
have ripped you out.
it completely it shocked me to the point where I freaked out and I hung up on him because I instantly got scared, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is, what he wants to talk about.
Right.
I just said, I didn't see a Sasquatch. I just saw a big hairy guy, and I hung up on him. Now he tried calling back, and I saw on the caller ID US government, and I went, I'm not picking up. I do not know what he wanted to talk to me about. And my guess is that he was somebody that had seen what I had posted on that webpage.
On that, in
And
that chat room.
how I'm assuming that, and it's been over 20 years, so I don't remember if I had to fill out a profile that included my phone number or not. Do not remember that part.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you if that's how he got my phone number or not, but he did have my phone number and wanted to talk to me about it. And that completely, it scared me. Now, I told my son at that time, my oldest son was probably pushing 16 at the time, or pretty close to 16, 14, 16, around there. He was in high school, I think.
Mhm.
And he told me, he said, Mom, if you did see a Sasquatch, well, there's this new site out on the internet you can get a hold of. Now, you know what that outfit is. I'm not going to
Uh-huh.
say it, but you know what it is, and everybody does. And he said,
Everybody
why don't
does.
you? Yeah, he goes, why don't you just tell them what happened to you and see what they have to say? And so I did. I looked them up, and I got on their website and filled out the template. And immediately I got a phone call from, at that time, was one of their researchers who worked for them. And he vetted me for probably 2 or 3 hours. We talked on the phone, and made me tell my story over and over and over again. And I
Yeah.
told him, I was just like, okay, why are you doing this? And he said, because I want to make sure that what you're saying is legit. And, and I told him, I said, well, that's what happened. And then at the end, he had told me, he said, yes, you did see a Sasquatch. Well, I was like, but I thought they all looked like Patty. And he said, they're people. He goes, they're people. You're not going to go to another country and they're all going to look like this group of people. They are absolutely individuals, and each of them look different, just like we do. So he actually was the person that I went to whenever I had questions throughout the years. And to this day, we are still very good friends. He no longer works for them. He's freelance and does his own thing. But he's a very, very dear friend of mine, and has some amazing stories himself about some things that that has happened to him too. But after that, it was almost like a gateway had opened, and I had more and more encounters throughout the years. And not that I was looking, because I thought, well, this is a once in a lifetime thing. It'll never happen again. Wow. But that was, it'll never happen again. Well, as it turned out, it was happening more and more, always when I least expected it. And usually when I had somebody with me. So it wasn't like it was my imagination that was getting the best of me, because I was literally having other people with me going, did you just see that? Yes, I did. And this just went on and on over a period of over 20 years. Yeah. And I had a friend of mine, and she and I live in the same area, and she was just really into it big time. And turned out we lived on the opposite side of the mountains from where she lived. So we were actually dealing with the same clan. So what would happen to me would happen to her. So, and I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to her, if that's okay with you. It was Cindy Goodbreak. She was the one that formed the Sasquatch Sisters Northwest, which I was on her team. And it was as we would talk and visit with each other, we would find out we were having the same things happen, the same noises on our ranches, the same sightings, the same things were happening. And so we both ended up just going, you know what, let's just go with this. I think we're being called to do something. I don't know why, but we're being called to do something. And from that, this has just turned into an amazing journey. Now, a lot of it, I've kind of branched off from the Sasquatch Sisters. I'm not in it as a group anymore. I really had a lot of some things happen this year. I had a lot of deaths in the family, and so I wasn't able to provide for her what she needed to keep her research team going. And I just felt it would be fair to her to just kind of pull away and let her maybe find a replacement or something to be able to go with it. So I haven't really been in it for quite a while, but I still have things happen that just completely blow my mind, and always when I least expect it. When you're making, you're thinking about what you're going to make for stew, for dinner, what you're going to put in the stew, and then all of a sudden you're looking right at one. I mean, it's just it's amazing. But one of the things that this has really taught me over the years has just been the how these are people, and not just they're not less than us. They're not a little bit above the animals, and that's a really narcissistic way of thinking when you look at these people like that, because they're absolutely phenomenal. They are They are individuals, they are families, they have clans, and they have, I think, tribes, and possibly even, you might even go as far as saying a nation. They are like stepping foot into, I would say, maybe a tropical rainforest and coming across an ancient tribe of people that man doesn't that modern man doesn't connect with. That's what it's like when you come across these people.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When I talk about my daytime sighting that I had, I tell people I only saw from like here up, but what I saw was human.
Yes.
It didn't look like Patty. It
Yes.
didn't. I'm in South Florida. So I was trying, like, and I was out that day kind of looking for them. And it was kind of like when I had my sighting and I saw, it was just, we locked eyes, like 1, 2, 3. And then he just went whoop, down into the brush, gone.
Yep. Yep.
But what
Yep.
I saw
Yep.
was human. It was human.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't know. It's a moment that was just for me. It was just for me.
Yes.
It was just me and my experience and what I saw. Because my son was with me, my daughter-in-law was with me. I mean, there was a few of us together, and yet I was the one that saw it, and I was the one that had that experience, and that it was peaceful. It was calm. It wasn't fear. There was no fear. There was no anxiety, and it just felt natural in a way, like
Yes.
natural, normal, like, yeah,
Yes.
I see you and you see me kind of thing,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely. I definitely know that feeling. When I've made eye contact with them, you don't get a feeling. They're masters of being able to project to you what they want you to feel.
Yes.
And when you make eye contact with them in a peaceful way, it is so natural.
Mhm.
It's almost like getting in touch with an ancient part of you. If
Yes,
that makes sense, it's
it
so
does to me.
natural that it becomes like no big deal that they are and you accept each other and it's all good. You
Yeah,
don't have a feeling like, oh my gosh, that's
yeah,
unless you are dealing with one that is angry, upset, and holds a grudge, and you do not know what you're up against until
mhm,
sometimes you are with one that is that way. And I've had terrifying encounter with one that wanted me out of his area and spent an entire night traumatizing me. But when it comes down to the ones that are willing to communicate with you, those people are able to be patient and kind. Boy, I'll tell you, I've come across some things that have really made me very emotional. Let me give you an example. One time, where I lived on a ranch that had 77 acres, and it was lakefront property. And my son, the one that does a lot of research with me,
mhm,
he and I used to walk down to the lake because we'd go down there, and I do tons of native beadwork, and I'll bead feathers for people, for gifts, for ceremony, smudge feathers, things like that. And down at the lake, because the geese and the ducks and the turkeys and all the fowl live down at the lake, and they shed their feathers in the spring, and we'd go down there and collect feathers so that I could go home, clean them up, and beat them. Well, my son and I were doing that so often, and we were having a lot of activity, but at that time we weren't necessarily realizing what was happening. We were still early enough in the game that we knew something weird was going on, but we didn't really know what it was. And we just kind of went, well, that was weird, because it was early on. Now I would be just, yay, but what we did was, we walked down to the lake to look for feathers, and we would pick them up and bring them home. Well, we went down there one time, and there was this bush, and the bush had so many miscellaneous feathers in it, but they were stuffed in it like Christmas ornaments along the trail where we have to walk by to be able to get down to the lake to get to the feathers.
Awesome.
And we're going, there was turkey feathers, there was goose feathers, there was, duck feathers, and they were all just stuffed in this bush like Christmas ornaments, quilled down, so they were placed in. And we went, that was interesting. Now, looking back, that's where I go back, and it's now a spot that I use for gifting for them, and they gift me things, and that's a part of the clan that I communicate with, and they know me because I lived there for 5 years. So they all go down there, and I'll just talk to them. I'll just talk to them like I'm talking to you, and let them know my intention. I'm here. I'm here. Just want to let you know that I'm coming into your home, and thank you for letting me come here. And I wish you blessings from Creator, and thank you for talking to me. Thank you for being here. And I'll get wood knocks. I'll get they call it samurai chatter, but it's just more of an ancient language is what it is. And you'll hear them whisper it, and sometimes they'll talk. And there was once last summer, there was somebody's chickens got out, and the chickens came down to and they were following me around it, and I'm going, what are you guys doing here? Well, I found a box of canned food in the woods that somebody had dumped, but it was still good. The dates on it were still good, but it was an entire case of vegetable soup. And these chickens were all around me, and I went, oh, you poor things, here. And so they had pop tops on the can, so I was popping the top off, and I'm pouring out corn and carrots and in this big pile of food on this one blank spot of ground to feed the chickens, because I thought, well, these poor things, so I unloaded all the soup, and then took all the garbage and sacked it up and took it out of there. Well, I came back the next day, and all of the food was gone. And in the place where the food had been, there was a beautiful white stone, a beautiful white, like a marble almost, and then a little heart-shaped terracotta stone about that big, sitting right where the food used to be. And I went, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's just, they really have really shared a lot with me and have taught me a lot. And I'm just really excited to be able to get to know them more. And that's one of the things that I found was, as soon as I stopped banging on trees and whooping and doing the usual stuff, as soon as I stopped doing that, and I'm not dissing on anybody that does, because that's where I started out doing that too. as soon as I stopped that and went, you know what? I'm not going to treat them like I'm going to try to discover them. I'm going to treat
Right.
them like they're already here, and
Yes.
I'm just going to get to know them. And as soon as I did that,
Yes.
amazing things, just amazing things started happening. And
Mhm.
I every time I go out in the woods, whether I see them or not, I still go out with respect just in case.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I treat them like I'm entering into a
Their
tribe
home.
of people.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm entering into the rainforest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm entering into a tribe of people who don't
Mhm.
see modern man, and I'm just going to show them the love that I want them to
Yep.
know that our kind does have, because they've really only seen some really bad stuff from us.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's one of the things that makes it really difficult, because they hold I think a generational
I think so.
feeling.
I think so. I mean, I definitely
Go ahead.
I totally agree with you 100%. And I feel like, and I've said this on my show many times, that I feel like we've already proven the existence of these people. We've already proven the existence. For me, the next step isn't to get another footprint or to get another,
Yes.
hair sample or a DNA. Like for me, the next step and the next evolution in our research that we are doing is to start building relationships with them. And in order to do that, you have to have trust. You can't just walk in and be like, I'm here and you're going to be my best
100%.
friend. No, it takes
Yes.
time. It's over time you build trust. And once they,
Yep.
to me, that's
No.
the next logical step.
Yes.
It's not about proving their
Yes.
existence. It's how do we make that connection
Yes.
and build trust? That's for me, that's the next step.
Yes. Yes. And one of the main things that I've learned is 100% truthfulness. If you go into an area
Mhm.
and you tell them, I always go in and I give them my intention. Hi, hello, I'm here. And I'm just going to do this, this, and this, and then I'm
Mhm.
going to leave.
Yep.
You better just do this, this, and this, and then you better leave. And
Yes.
if you tell them that you're coming back, you better come back. If you tell them that you're not coming back, don't ever step foot there again.
Yes.
And because your word to them is golden, you better stick with it.
Mhm.
And they know that I will tell you, they will vet us more than we will vet the evidence we find of them. If they see in you dishonesty, if they
Right.
see in you something that is shady, they don't want anything to do with you.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so some people, I've had a lot of people that have gone, well, what, you're saying that they can read minds? I don't know. We're just scratching the surface. But
Right.
what I do know is watching my dog. And I
Mhm.
know that if my dog does not like you, I'm going to trust my dog because my dog knows something about you that I don't.
Right.
And so,
It's
and if
true.
they, yeah, and if they can figure out that something's shady about somebody, and that's just your dog, I bet these people are 100 times more able to do it. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, you better stick with your word. You better be honest, and
Yeah.
you better go in with a good heart.
Mhm. And
Yep.
I mean, I have been in areas where I have not felt fear, but we kind of had, like an interaction with them, and there was the interaction ended, And I started to kind of like, I went to walk by myself towards an area, and I pushed a little too deep, and I got this,
Mm-hmm.
and the wall of
Yep.
fear, it's like a literal
Yep.
physical, I felt the energy push going, stay where you are.
Yes.
Don't come past this. This is the line,
Yes.
and don't cross it. Not that but I wasn't like afraid,
Yes.
but I knew that it was, don't go past this area right here. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it was, maybe there were
Yes.
females and young ones in the area. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there was a hunt that was going to start. I don't know what the reason was, but there have been a few times when I've been out that's happened. But when it
Yes.
happens, I stop and go, okay, hold on. There's a reason for this. Back
Yes.
up and walk out. Doesn't, you
Yes.
know what I mean? Like, there's so many people that do try to kind of push the envelope and push the envelope and push the envelope.
Don't.
And that's not how we're going to build trust. It's kind of like,
Exactly.
I do believe that they can absolutely let you know, with you not even seeing them, with you not even knowing that they're right there, they can give you an impression
Yes.
and communicate with you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Even if it's not telepathy, it's a feeling that they can project and that you can pick up if
Yes.
you're, paying attention, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that exact thing happened to me this last weekend. So I had gone up in the woods, and a friend of mine came with me, but we were going to take a trail. It was just a hiking trail, one that's well used by people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it was early enough in the day that I was an hour ahead of my friend, and she had not yet showed up yet. And what I had done is I told her that I was going to go ahead and hike this trail and see if I could, flush. I was just going to do some tracking, is what I was. But there was so much deer sign everywhere. I mean, the deer were just everywhere in this area. And as I was hiking this trail, and this is a flat, old road is what it was. It was a completely flat hiking trail, an old road that had been turned into a hiking trail. And as I was walking this trail, I started hearing rock clacks. Only we're not talking like one or two rock clacks. We're talking clack, 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 clack. And I knew that I could tell the difference between like wood knocks and woodpecker, because we have all kinds of woodpeckers up here. But this was definite rocks clanking together. And I got that feeling, don't go any further. Just stop. Just stay where you're at. Just stay. And I stood there, and it was about an hour that I sat there. And then I went, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go forward down this trail. And I didn't go very further, but I still got that. It was almost like you said, there's almost like a wall that you feel you come up against. And yeah, it's the hair on your arms stand up. You get this electric feeling. And then I just stopped, and then I just withdrew, and then I waited for Tanya to show up. When Tanya showed up, it was, I'd say, like I said, about an hour later. She showed up, and I walked back to the trailhead to greet her, and then her and I walked together. Then we went ahead and kept going. We didn't have that pressure anymore. But when we got further down the trail, in the very middle of the trail was a dead deer, so freshly killed that she was still somewhat warm to the touch. Now, we chased the crows off of her because the crows had been immediately on her. But I mean, I'm that kid that used to poke things with a stick when I was growing up. Okay. So I was flipping her over and looking to see what injuries and stuff. And I told Tanya, I said, you watch my back, because if there's a cougar here, I don't want it jumping on me, you know? So
Right.
she faced behind me, and I literally examined this doe, and the only thing wrong with it was she had a snapped neck. There was no crush marks on her back from a cougar, no rake marks, no blood. She literally just had a snapped neck. And I mean, I don't know if you guys, if you're familiar with when a cougar kills something, you'll see where they grab it
Yeah,
either
they
from
grab,
behind
right?
its head. Yeah. And you'll see tufts of hair where the teeth go in. You'll see blood. Usually there's rake marks where they're raking with their hind legs.
Mm-hmm.
She was fine, except for she had a snap neck. And where the birds had started to peck at her. But that was Tanya and I both kind of went, I think we interrupted a hunt. If we had gone any further, I think we would have interrupted the hunt, because it was at that point where the rocks were clanking. It was like, and it was very urgent. So maybe there was somebody watching that was just going, don't interrupt. Just don't interrupt. But yeah, they'll do that. And yeah, listen to that, because if you don't know what you're walking up on. It could be a mother giving birth. It could be children in the area. You don't know what you're walking up on. If you get that feeling, be respectful.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, it's like if you walked up to some stranger's house and you didn't knock on the door, and you just opened the front door and said, "Can I use your phone? Hello?
Yeah.
I need a phone." You know what I mean? Like, you don't do that.
Yeah.
You walk up to the door and you knock on the door. You wait for someone to answer the door. You know, be invited in. Be like, it's like, to me, it seems so simple, right? It's almost like it's just common sense. That's how you would treat anybody, or anybody, a neighbor, somebody you don't even know off the street. You're going to show them a level of respect.
Yes.
And I don't understand why so many people kind of have difficult time trying to think of them as a people and giving and showing them the same level of respect. And I have difficulty with that. That, you know, I don't understand why more people don't think of it in those terms, and and just apply that concept and in their research, and see how far you get. See if you get more interaction. See if you get more, you know, more things happening. See if you get more activity. Just go and be normal and be respectful. And I don't know, every single time that, you know, I go and I'm respectful, I don't, you know what I mean? I never have a bad experience. And, you know, pretty much almost every time there's something that happens. There's some kind of something that happens.
Yep, absolutely. I know that even for myself, when I have crossed the line and done something that wasn't necessarily respectful, because I wasn't thinking of how my word is gold. I remember I went into one area and I told them that I wasn't going to come back. And I said, I'm not going to come back. I'm leaving now and I'm not going to come back. Well, it was a few weeks later, somebody wanted me to take them back in there. And I went, okay. And I didn't even think about it, because I was thinking, well, they're going to be gone. They're going to be gone. They're not going to still be standing there 2 weeks later or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and take them back in there. It's no big deal. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. And I one of the people that was with us ended up getting nauseated and getting really sick. And I realized then, going, oh, if you tell them, whatever you tell them, stick with it. And that's what it should be. It should be that way with us. It should be that way with you and I.
Your word should mean something.
Yes. Absolutely.
It should be literal.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like because I do believe that. I believe that they're, like your word, because words have power, right? We know
Yes.
that, right? Words have power. And when you set an intention or you want to manifest something, your words, the spoken word holds a
Yes.
lot of power. And I
Yes.
believe that that's how they view us and see us. In other words, like what all they can do is observe us, right? We can't actually have a back and forth, like physical, like
Yeah.
word communication, right?
Yeah.
But our body language also speaks volumes. So it's not just our spoken word, but it's our body language as well. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yes.
and it's that intention behind it. So for me, like, again, it's just all about being humble, and being, having a humble heart and showing that respect. And I don't know. I feel like it's such a
Yes.
simple thing. And I don't understand why more people kind of don't just try it. At least try it. Try that
Yeah.
approach and
Try
the
it. Yeah.
research. Just try it.
Experiment. Experiment.
Experiment. Exactly.
Experiment with honesty.
Try it.
But yes, absolutely, because that's exactly what we did. Was we kind of went, I'm going to think outside of the box here. I'm not
Mhm.
going to do what everybody else is doing, and I'm going to try something different. And as soon as I did, and I'm right now in the process of learning more about what they call mind speak and stuff, which is more of
Mhm.
a telepathic way. And
Right.
I'm not very good at it. I'll be honest with you. I'm lousy at it, but I will speak to them. And this is a funny story. This is, I'll try to be quick. I don't know how long you have. Do we have a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So last year, I guess it would be the year before, my ex-husband and I went up above what they call Lion's Head, which is on a mountain above Priest Lake. And
Uh-huh.
it's the upper corner of North Idaho, way up in the mountains at the summit of just absolute wilderness. And there was this beautiful, beautiful vista, and he wanted to get out and take photos. Well, I had just met Igor Burtsev. Is it
Uh-huh.
Burtsev or
Yeah.
Burtsev?
Good stuff, I think.
Burtsev, I think. Wonderful man, absolutely wonderful man, very sweet. And we talked for a long time, and he had told me about mind speak. Well, I had never really thought about it before. And I thought, I'm
Mhm.
just gonna try this. I'm just gonna experiment. Well, at the time, my husband, soon to be ex-husband, but my husband at the time, he just wasn't into anything like that. And so I did this all internally. I didn't tell him
Mhm.
anything. I just, in my mind, went, if there's one of the forest beings here, would you let me know? And I'm expecting, I'm looking for like trees across the road or footprints or one to jump out at me. That's what I was
Right.
looking for, because I was just so excited. I was like
Right.
a little kid going, oh, I'm going to try something different. And we're sitting, we're sitting in the Jeep. We get out on this vista, and on this vista overlooking the valley, there was a big, huge, two big boulders and a big black stump right up against the boulder. And he gets on the boulder next to the stump, and he's taking pictures. And I get on the other boulder next to him, and I'm taking photos. And then he jumps down and I jump down, and I'm still in my mind going, if there's anybody here, will you tell me? And I'm just like a little kid. Well, I get in the Jeep and I'm looking through my camera and I'm trying to send stuff. And of course, we're up in the middle of the wilderness, so we don't have service. So we're sitting here eating lunch and everything. And I look over, and And I'm thinking, that's a really cool stump. So I get out and I take a photo of the rock and the stump that he had been on, because it was just a really cool, and it just gave character to the vista in the background. Just beautiful. Dimension is more what I call it. It gave the photo dimension. So I took a photo of it, and I'm in the Jeep, and I'm still kind of thinking and waiting for some miraculous sign, and all of a sudden, crack, a rock hits the windshield right in front of my face. I squealed. My husband startles, and I'm looking around to see who the person is that's there that we didn't see. And I get ready to get out, because my first thought was a bird. A bird dropped something to crack it, because crows will do that. They'll drop things to crack it. So I get ready to get out, and he grabs me by the shirt collar and hauls me back into the Jeep and says, "Don't get out." And I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "Look." And on the Jeep, right at the vent by the windshield, was a rock. And he goes, "We're leaving." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm still kind of not really thinking. I'm still not thinking it, right? So we get home, and first of all, on the way home, he was freaked out the rest of the day. There was a tree across the road, and he didn't want to get out of the vehicle to move the tree. And I'm like, I'll move it. And he's like, "Be careful." And I'm going, "Why are you so scared?" We're in bear country. We know it's bear country. I don't know why you're freaked out. And he goes, "Look at those bushes right there." And it did. It was a real narrow road, and the bushes were right up against it. He goes, "You don't know what's on the other side of those bushes." I'm like, "Well, just cover me. We got a 45 in the car. Just cover me, So, I moved the thing. And when we got home, we started going through the photos. And I found the photo of the rock that I had taken of the stump overlooking the vista. There was no stump in the photo. And that was where I went, "Oh my gosh." And I showed it to him, and I said, "Do you remember that stump that was right next to the rock?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Where is it?" And I showed him the photo. And I said, "Do you see a stump?" And he goes, "No." And I'm like, "Where's the stump?" Well, he literally was close enough to him that he could have reached out with his hand and put his hand on top of that stump. That's how close that stump was to him. So when you're out in the woods, pay attention to those black stumps.
Because you never know.
You never know. I know. It's like that's one of those things where when I was learning about the mind speak, I found that I could project it. I just couldn't hear it.
Okay, so that is kind of what happens to me, right? And for so what happens is I can always tell when they're around because I get a certain feeling in my body, right? I get this like tightness in my chest.
Yes.
Almost like I can't breathe, almost like something's sitting on my chest. That's how I know that they're there.
Yes.
And then I kind of start with my mind and I kind of start like probing to kind of see where the energy's coming from. So I know where they are around me and I can figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
So I start telepathically communicating with them and I know that they're hearing me. I know it.
Yes.
They won't communicate with me in the moment most times. Once in a while, I'll get an impression. Like there was the time that we were with Jessica in Georgia and these Sasquatch, they knew Jessica. She's been going to that area and researching for 12 years. So they know who she is, but they didn't know me and didn't know Matt.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of trying to communicate with them and they, basically what I was getting was, who the F are you and what are you doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know you.
Yeah.
Who are you and what are you doing here? Like that
Yes.
was literally what I was getting. Now, most times what happens after I leave the location, and I feel like it's that it's a trust. I don't know if it's a trust issue or if it's just they feel safer with me this way. Usually after I leave the location, I could be maybe a mile down the road and then they'll start communicating with me. They'll give me sometimes I'll get images, sometimes it's not an audible voice in my head. It's just
Yeah.
a knowing. It's just, I
Yes.
know. It's like, this is
Yes.
what they're telling
Yeah.
me, and it's coming from them. But it
Yes.
always happens generally after I leave the location. And it's
That.
interesting when it happens because you're just
Yes.
kind of like, wait a minute, what was that? Hold on. How would I have even thought of
Yeah.
that or known that or whatever? But yeah, it's after I leave. And I think it's just a comfort, maybe it's a comfort, comfortability thing with them and that they don't know me yet they still want to communicate, but they maybe the distance for them is just, they're more comfortable that way. And I'm okay. I'm still
Yeah.
getting information from them. I'm still communicating with them. So for
Yes.
me, it doesn't matter if I'm on location and they do it with me or after I leave, it's still the information. You know what I mean? It's still communication
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. And a lot of it is trust is a big thing with them, and it's earned.
Yeah.
I think when they start realizing that you are a person with a good heart, that you are
Mhm.
trustworthy, then
Yes.
they'll do more and more. But they will test you. They will test you
Mhm.
in so many different ways, and they'll even try to scare you. I've learned that, especially like the young ones, the young males,
Mhm.
they will try to scare you to test your grit, to
Yeah.
see if you're gonna run screaming, or
Test
if
your
you're gonna say,
resolve.
all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
Yes, they absolutely will.
Mhm.
And the women that I have met, because I am in communication more with a woman than I am a man. And
Mhm.
it's if you think more of the native beliefs and tribal customs for
Yeah.
our people, um, women didn't necessarily talk to men, they talked to women of relative to the man. So
Mhm.
in the ancient Lakota days, if a woman wanted to talk to a man that wasn't her brother or father or son, she would have to talk to his female relative, and then that female relative would communicate to him.
Mhm.
So
Makes
whenever
sense.
you take, yeah, whenever you might possibly be in working with a clan, you want to deal with the women if you can. If you're a woman, try to
Mhm.
communicate more with the women than you do the
Yeah.
men. The women are very you'll find that their personalities vary. The two that I talk to, um the elder grandmother, you don't want to make her mad, but she's
Yeah.
also very patient. She's also
Yeah.
very patient, and she forgives when you're learning. But boy, you better
You better catch on
don't
quick.
be yeah,
Not a
don't
lot of patience. You better
yeah, don't get
right?
cocky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't
I've
get
had
arrogant, don't get cocky.
yeah. I've had communication with both males and females. I find that I've had communication with an older female and a younger female. And it was interesting too, because the two different, I
Mm,
mean, the younger female she was very funny. She was very funny. She had a very interesting sense of humor. I was very taken aback
yes,
at that she had this humor to her, she was
yes,
very funny. Um,
yes.
I will share, and I'm not going to share details of how the communication happened and all of that. But I will tell you, I did have a communication with a male. who, and it was the first time, this is the first time it's ever happened. I mean, I've never actually channeled a Sasquatch up until this point. And he kind of channeled through me. And when he did, he allowed me, there were two things that he allowed me to feel and experience. I don't even want to say feel, experience deeply, was the love that he had for his mate and the grief that he felt
Oh.
upon losing her. And I still, I'm sorry,
Oh.
it was such a powerful emotion, and it was unlike anything I had ever felt. And that moment for me was very powerful, and that's why it made me realize how human they really are, like how human they are. I mean, I don't think in my entire life, other than with my children,
Yes.
have had that deep of an emotion for another human being other than my children. That's how deep it was and how powerful it was to, and it was such a
Yes.
gift that he allowed me to feel that. I mean, I recognize
Yes.
that as a gift. That wasn't something that was, you know what I mean? Not a lot of people get to feel that. And he allowed me to feel that, and I was so appreciative, and I so
Yes,
thankful
it
for
is.
the gift. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. I do every
Yeah.
time I think about it, I get very emotional because it was so
Yes.
powerful for me. It was like
And
crazy.
now
Okay.
I have experienced something on that aspect. One of the things that I absolutely am just very. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Nope, you're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh no.
No, you're good.
I don't know if you guys can hear me or
You're
not.
good. You're good.
Am I good? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. The delay is really. What I was going to say is that one of the things that I'm very thankful of is that one of my team members was able to introduce me to a Lakota elder who has grown up and lived alongside these people his entire life. And so he willingly took me under his wing and taught me how to communicate and what to look for. And he was able to teach me more of how to do, like you said, where you get the kind of the images in your mind, and the love that they have for each other just far surpasses what humans do are for each other. But
Oh yeah.
when they love us, they also love us with just a enormous amount of compassion and love. And he wanted me, one time I was able to not really communicate with a male, but he gave me that that feeling, the one that what you just described. But it wasn't about another one of their kind. He wanted me to know how he felt about my teacher and how much he cared for this man, this Lakota man, like he was his son. So it was absolutely, boy, it's
It's
You can't, how
beautiful.
do you put into words that which doesn't have
You
how do you
can't.
put it into words? You can't.
You
It's
can't.
just an
It's
it's an overwhelming feeling
yes.
of beauty is what it is.
And the
It's amazing. Yeah.
compassion that I mean,
So
I didn't
yeah,
explain this part,
that and that is a gift.
but he let me know that his mate died at the hands of a human, and yet he still allowed me to have that and showed me that and showed me how he still has compassion and empathy and love for humans. So it was kind of like
Yes,
it 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 meant so much more to him to share that with me than just for me to actually feel it. That if that makes any sense, it meant something
absolutely.
huge and powerful that he could
Yes.
share that with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm crying now.
Now, no, it's okay. Now take that, what you just said and what you experienced,
Mm.
and now that explains why they don't have patience for people who say they're an animal and they need to be shot and we need to get a body so we
Right.
can do DNA. Now you know why that is why they have no patience and why they won't show themselves. Are you going to step out to somebody who feels that way about you? You're
Right.
going to go, heck no, you're not going to see me. I
Mhm.
don't even, I don't even let people, when I'm out in the woods, if somebody is out there with me, if there's somebody else that I don't know that's out in the woods, I'll do the tree peek thing. I'll hide behind a tree and I'll make sure that they don't see me. And because I don't know what they are. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their intentions are.
Mhm.
I'm not going to let them see me. If they happen to see me, I let them know that I have a weapon.
Yeah. You're like, I'm locked and
So,
loaded.
yeah, don't get any ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you, that right there
Mhm.
is, I think, the main reason why they don't allow a lot of people to know that they exist.
Right.
Because to just gift this to somebody who's gonna go, oh, that's really nice, now let's shoot one so we can put it on a slab and analyze it.
Mhm.
That's somebody's father, brother, mother,
Brother.
sister, brother.
Right.
That's somebody that means the world to somebody else. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you just don't do that. You don't do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. Tonight has been amazing. I
well,
really,
thank you.
you've like just, I love your experience. We could sit and go for hours. You know that, right?
Oh, totally. And I do hope that we can keep in communication, because you and I have the same mindset, and I'm really, I could share a lot of things that I can't share here. I'll share
Sounds
with
good.
you. So yeah,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to put you backstage. Say goodnight to my peeps.
Good
And
night.
I will join you in just a moment. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you again so much. It's
Thank
been
you.
fabulous. Wasn't that amazing, guys? It was such an amazing conversation. And Soul Tribe, we found another member of our Soul Tribe, guys. We found another member. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And I don't know, I'm still a little emotional, guys. So I'm sorry. I'm still a little emotional. Trying to whoop, trying to rein it in so I can end the show. Thank you guys so much for being here. And next week, I have Morgan Knudsen that's gonna be here. And you guys are gonna really like that show too. So make sure you guys are here for that show. There will not be another Monday night show next week. Amber and I are going to be off that night. Matt's got a million other things going on with Outcast. So we both me and Amber get Monday night off. Woohoo. Gonna rest, go to bed early. At least that's my plan anyway. But thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I love you guys, and I will see you next.